Hey, I'm back, y'all. This Dural Bond, back with Motivi Media. Just a motivational message, basically. And today, first we're gonna start off with that Serenity prayer because that was day one. And you got to keep that fresh on your tongue because it's gonna keep you grounded and keep you mindful of what you need to be doing and what you can't change. And you got to accept what you can change, which is you. That's the common denominator in all of that is us. No matter what we're doing, and whether it's a relationship, job, uh, business venture, raising kids, these little crumb snatchers that we got, you can't change them. It's sad. I know it hurt. That's a hard one to let go. That took me a while right there to realize, on this journey of that I can't change people. And even the message today for anybody listening is I'm not trying to change you. I'm just I'm trying to be a living example of what change look like. Today, currently, I can say where I'm at, I'm good, but I can look back and it's been some dark moments, and I could say like, where did it all start? Where did it all come from? Uh, Originally, I'm from Peoria, Illinois, population about, 100,000 plus. Uh, it, not far from Chicago, between Chicago and St. Louis. It go down out there. I ain't gonna even sugarcoat that. It go down. You gonna have to, be on your P's and Q's, and it just come with the whole learning territory. So, start off. I come from a 2-family home. My dad. We all have to look at, if you're trying to figure out who you are, you got to look at where you come from. Even if you're dating, you got to look at where they come from. You got to look at my parents. My dad, he come from Arkansas. My mama, she from Alabama. So, you look at that and say, hey, 3 generations ago, they was, leaving school, picking cotton, whatever. And they moved up north, Midwest, like I said, Peoria area, and moved for job opportunities. And a lot of people is migrating right now and got to explain to your kids, hey, we moving for a better situation. So you move, that's how things, if you look at things and you kind of study it, that's how things is formed and that's how people, migrate and move around and that's where you from and where you from. You might meet somebody from the East Coast. Yeah, we was all going through 3 generations ago. We was all going through, dealing with racism on a higher level, but they was educated where people from the South was, they was picking cotton. So I said that to say to help somebody that maybe they trying to figure out their life, why is it this way? Why, where I come from, how I get here. Sometimes I ask myself, where did I go wrong? But I'm thankful for everything I done went through because it brought me to where I am today. And where I am today is sitting here, number one, talking to you. But more than anything is I'm straight. I'm cool. And I'm able to reach back. I take care of my kids. I done been through a couple wrong relationships, and I'm in a good one now. Married, got a homeowner. Everything good. But I come from that area, and growing up, my father was in construction. My mother worked at the bank. They was fighting. Different situations that reflected on us as kids. I lived in the neighborhood. We was on the south end. I had a little basketball rim in the yard. It was raggedy. Older guys used to come through the neighborhood, try to slam the rim down. My dad worked construction. He come bring the raggedy little gravel pieces or whatever. Wasn't like I had no smooth concrete or nothing. We was just in the hood, shooting baskets. And from there, and I was just a young buck. Didn't talk much, outside all day. When it's time to go in, I remember I say to myself all the time, how did I learn how to fight? I had a big family to live down the street. They was about 5, 6 houses down, and they was about 8 boys deep up in that house, and they wanted to be in my yard all the time. And my mom used to be like, go tell them to come, get your ball. It's time to come in. And I'd be like, they won't give it to me, mama. she'd be like, boy, you better go out there and get that ball. You know, it's time to come in. So I got to go out there and get the ball, you know. So I had to learn how to scrap. Because, you know, first it was a couple takeaways and all this and that. And like I said, I ain't really talk. So, you know, they thought it was sweet. And I ain't saying I won every fight. You know, I came in the house with some bumps and bruises and this and that. But I got the ball. And, you know, after a while, I gained the respect. Like, hey, man, when I say it's time to get the ball, man, I got to go in. You know, or we're going to have to scrap. And win or lose, I got to come in with the ball. So, you know, I learned how to fight at a young age, you know. And when you grow up out there, you know, it's like 90% gangs. Meaning like 90% of the guys you run into, I don't know what it's like now. Hopefully it's not that same way. But when I was growing up, 90% of the guys that I knew, they was in a gang. You know, and if you weren't really in a gang, you was at least claiming it because you was in a neighborhood, you know, and that's what went down. And so that's what it was in my neighborhood. You know, I was with the gang in the neighborhood just by guilty off association because that's where I'm from. And I was a slow learner. You know, I ain't learned how to ride no bike till I was like 12. But boy, when I learned how to ride that bike and I jumped off that porch and I wasn't confined to that yard no more, that's when these eyes started to see, you know. And, you know, just going back on the conversation, where did it all start? And I'm telling you this story so maybe you can identify maybe with your child or maybe where you went wrong. And it's not too late to ask that little boy inside of you, hey, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to be? And it ain't no microwave situation. It ain't going to happen overnight. You know, it's going to take some dedication, some really believing in yourself, pulling up out yourself, and getting the best of you out of you. And so I said that to say, with my own self, where did it all go wrong? And I don't have no regrets because it made me the man that I am today. You know, I done went through some hard times. You know, I done been arrested quite a few times in my younger days. My 30s, you know, they set me down. You know, I'm in my late 40s, about to hit 50. If that give you any knowledge, and if you follow me or whatever, sooner or later I'm gonna get all the way into it. But I'm just trying to, you know, walk you through it. Same way I'm walking it through my mind. Like, where did it all go wrong? And maybe when I jumped off that porch, you know, maybe it was too early, you know. But once I jumped off that porch, and I like to play ball. I used to play basketball as a youngin' growing up. And so I jump off that porch, you know, I start venturing off, go to this school, go to that school. Then, you know, it was a little bit chaotic at my crib, you know, growing up. My mother and father, they ended up getting a divorce, and it was always a fight and a struggle at the house, especially on the weekends, you know, because my mama, you know, and I get it, my mama party, you know what I'm saying? And so, and we birds of a feather. But anyway, so it was always a situation, you know, so I could ride my bike later than other boys could, you know, and because there was so much going on at the house. So once I got through playing at the courts or you know, at the schools, you know, I'm hanging out, I'm riding, playing ball in the projects and stuff, and being places I ain't got no business being, and I'm seeing things that I ain't got no business seeing, and it wasn't long before, like I said, I was already identified with my neighborhood. And because I'm staying out later, I'm seeing things that I shouldn't be seeing. And it wasn't long before I started indulging in them things. And when I say indulging in them, you know, around that time, you know, I grew up, I was born in 75, you know, so I'm talking about late 80s, you know, crack hit the scene. You know what I'm saying? Everybody out there getting money, changing their situation. And I saw the lifestyle, and that's what I moved towards. And, you know, bad choice. And here I am, we talking about almost 30 years later. You get what I'm saying? Almost 30 years later, 40 years later, and I just not cleaned all that up. So if you got a little youngin', little cousin, little nephew, sit them down, because them choices that they make in the day, it could be detrimental. Because I know some boys, you know, that when I was growing up, we was all together. And some of them gone, you know. They ain't here to talk about it, listen, or tell a story about it or nothing, you know. We was living like we wasn't going to live. You know, we was just out there. And it carried on a whole lifestyle. All the way, I'm talking about 13, 14 into his 20s and, you know what I mean, just whatever. And I'm thankful today to be able to look back and say, man, that old me never thought I would be here. And so that's the goal. That's the goal is to save somebody, is to tell somebody, look, don't go down that path. You know, I'm a father. I got boys. I be trying to tell them, you know, and thank God that they, you know, it's for them. So they running together, you know, and they all on a, as of today, you know, because you can't control nobody. So I'm not here to brag or boast on, because it ain't my doing, it's their choices, you know. Like I had to tell my mother when I got locked up, I said, hey, mama, it wasn't because you raised me wrong, it's because of the choices that I made. We all got choices, you know. Just as I'm sitting here today and you sitting here today, we could decide tomorrow that we're going to do something goofy, you know, do something goofy and, man, throw it all out the door. And that's why I say with that serenity, you got to have yourself grounded. You got to remind yourself when you look in the mirror, you brush your teeth, you washing your face, that what your goal is, what your mission. Because if you ain't standing for something, you bound to fall for anything. And if you're not aware, then you unaware. You know, it ain't no gray area. You know, this ain't hard. It's simple. Really, it's simple. But we complicate it. We complicate it on what we ain't gonna do. You know, what versus on what needs to be done. You know. And so, going back to them childhood days, that's the choices I made. I was 13, 14, you know, I wanted to gang bang. I wasn't even tripping on no money. I wanted to gang bang. And so that was my love, you know, them streets. And I do whatever I need to do at the house. When I say whatever, I was the perfect kid at the house. I clean, whatever you asked me to do. Whatever my mama was requiring of me, you know what I mean? I was on that, you know. And it wasn't a lack of love that I had at the house or nothing like that. It was what I saw in the streets, you know, and that's what I wanted. You know, that's what I wanted for myself. That's what I was pushing for. And at a young age. And so I was on some gangbanging stuff, you know, all the way. I was one of them kids. I started high school at like 13. You know, I graduated at 17. Went to school, straight A student. School was easy, you know. The streets was easy, you know what I mean? What was hard was me, because I was hard-headed. And so I ain't had no problem at school. I did exactly what anybody wanted me to do, you know? And I always been like a people-pleasing person. So, you know, if you want me to go to school and be the best student, I'm the best student. I ain't in there clowning or none of that, you know? But when I get out of school, oh, it's going down. You know, I'm out there in them streets. And so I played the role. You know, I was like a chameleon, you know, and however you knew me, that's how you knew me. If you knew me in school, you knew me for being a good student. If you knew me in the streets, you knew me as a street dude, you know. And I had, you know, it was like night and day. And you didn't know me from the streets and knew me from the school. It just didn't work like that. I ain't even run like that. You know, I was a whole nother wolf. So anyway, monitor your kids. Don't say just because it's your child that, nah, they ain't doing that. That ain't what they doing. Yeah, that's them. That's them. Because character is who you are when ain't nobody looking. And I'm telling you, hey, when you know self, you know others. So if somebody, especially somebody, you know, because I was taught, you know, you mind your elders, you respect your elders. And that's what a lot of these kids missing today. You know, they don't respect you. And they don't respect nobody else that look like you or your age or nothing else. And I wasn't raised like that. So I respected my elders, you know. And a lot of times, us as parents, where we lacking that is when the teacher, the principal, the whoever call and say your kid did whatever, you thinking that somebody did something to your kid. No, that's your kid acting up, you know. But to go back to me, I was gangbanging, you know, at a young age. And And I got, girls, streets. That was my life. And at the age of 16, 17, I was having my first child. My oldest daughter, 31. She's doing well for herself. Thank God. I'm not taking no credit or no praise for that. Because I was missing in her life. I was there as a parent. She probably got a different outlook at me, but me, I look at myself and I can look back. I can say, hey, I was a straight up scumbag. You know what I mean? And not to say I was a bad person or, I would never addicted to no drugs or nothing like that. I'm just saying the choices that I'm making, they weren't family first. Nah, they was me first. I used to think like, hey, whatever happened to me, that ain't got nothing to do with nobody else other than me. So that's selfish right there. That's a selfish statement because everybody looking at you, not only your kids, but your neighbors, your cousins, your family members. And hey, all I was trying to do was get it. And when I first, when that daughter came along, that's when I went from gang banging to, I was always getting a little bit of money. I'm not here to try to make it seem like was out there kingpinning or doing nothing. I was just an average dude in my eyes that was, trying to do right by others and get me some bread, But I was always in the street, and with that, come a code and rules, principles, and things that you got to live by and abide by. And when you're out there living that life, certain things come with it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever measure you come with, that's how you're gonna get measured. So I said that to say, I wasn't squeaky clean. You know what I mean? Hey, whatever come with it. And but when my daughter came, I kind of stopped gang banging, but I had left a name for myself to where, I was really, one of the guys not to really. But I'm not here to highlight that. That's not what I'm here to highlight. I'm just trying to tell you a story on how a dirty, individual, dumb, lost soul I was, and how, how I changed it around to be sitting here today, to even be living. But so that came along, and I was smart in school. I could have went to college. I actually did go to junior college for about a year. That, the streets choked that out, and the need for, I had a daughter, then, tried to move around, left there, went to Champaign. And I was always the type of person that I'd be in the street, but I'd go get a job too, Went to Champaign. I was down there, Champaign, Illinois. Shout out to them. Treated me well, you know what I'm saying? Did my little things down there. Laid low, though. Everything was cool. I worked at Kraft Foods. Worked at the Park District out there. So I was, you know what I'm saying? I was cool. Then I come back, I got another daughter. Same woman. To break it down, I'm a father of 8. Legally 7. But one I raised like mine, she called me dad, I call her my daughter. So I got 4 boys, 4 girls. 4 boys, 3 girls, legally mine, 4 boys, 4 girls. I'm a father of 8. That's what I tell anybody. So prior to me, the last few years of my life, the only label I had on me was a father. You know what I mean? And before that, I was just in the streets, just, hey, I ain't think about life. So I'm telling this story to prevent a young me. Because I got, my youngest boy just turned 11 the other day, but the rest, my other 3 boys, they 18, 20, and 22. And they doing straight for themselves. I wish I could put them in a headlock and tell them, go do this, go do this, go do that. But I tell them, hey, you grown. I can't tell you which direction to go. I can only advise you, and you can always call on me because I want you to be better than me. And if you listen to me, you'll be the best version of you. But, when you're young, I'm sure somebody was talking to me like that, and I wasn't trying to hear it, thinking, what do he know? You know what I mean? And I'm sure that's how they look at me. And we didn't, we was in the house together for about 6 years together. But I got divorced from their mother and separation and all of that. And, I'm in a whole nother city, and, I do my best to go out. And I'm there on a monthly basis to visit with them, but they're older. So anyway, enough of that. But if you got a young boy, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you got to catch them. You got to catch them. Because see, nowadays what goes on with these boys is they ain't fighting no more. So win, lose, or draw on a fight, oh, it's gonna be some gunplay, and you gotta prevent all of the measures. Me at 49, if I go somewhere, which is rare, if you step on my shoe, I'm gonna tell you I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have my foot right there, because what I don't want, I don't want to go down that path. I ain't trying to provoke you, because there's some people, grown don't come with an age, it come with a state of mind. So there's some people out there, they still up with the nonsense. And it's a part of me that, could trigger that, or could be triggered in me. So I just stay at home, because I'm on a whole nother page or whatever. But you got to watch it, So if your little boy, your little nephew, your little cousin, your little neighbor, whatever, if they get into a little brawl, you got to watch them real close now, because it's finna be some gunplay, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it's that way. I was just riding yesterday, which was a Saturday, and I went to a funeral, but the brother who I went to go, who went go be with the Lord, he was of age, you know what I mean? He was in his 50s. It's still a young age, still unfortunate. But then as I'm riding and I'm running a couple errands, I went by and I noticed all the churches, they had more people at the churches on Saturday than they do on Sunday. And I said, wow, man, we losing our people. We losing our people. We're not aware, we living for the wrong reasons. We taking things we putting too much value on things that's unvaluable, And the sad part about it is I was one of them. I was one of them lost souls, I was one of them knuckleheads that was causing problems and, on my way to the grave or to the penitentiary, which eventually I did, find myself and lead myself basically to the penitentiary, making wrong choices. So basically, I'm just trying to say, catch them when they're young. Catch them when they're young. Keep them busy. Keep them in things that's productive. Show them some love. Because, see, a lot of times the gangs in the streets, they catching the young boys based off love. You know what I'm saying? I know when we was coming up, man, that's, we shake hands and then we just say love. Love, fam, love. And you hear that. And you're not getting I love you at home. Ain't nobody told you I love you. Man, you feel like you got more love in the streets. And the streets, they gonna play on your weakness. Yeah, because they gonna eat you up. You just bait. You just bait for some shark that you probably hanging around. You just a guppy. And if you ain't no guppy, you probably a fish, you know what I'm saying? But you ain't gonna never make it to no whale, so stay up out that water, stay out them streets, man. It ain't for you. Find you a book, find you a school. I always say to my buddies or whoever I'm talking to, hey, I'd rather my kid find a college, and I'd rather them go to that college and sit on them people bunk. And I'd rather them they could be there 6-7 years, ain't doing homework, whatever. I'd rather send my money to that institution and send them $40, $50. They could be somewhere playing video games and chasing after young girls, living their life, partying, whatever. Then they be locked up in somebody else's institution, in a prison, you know what I mean? Doing a stretch. That ain't what you want. That ain't what you want for your child. It's hell on earth. Trust me. So if you could prevent that, if you could just prevent that, especially if you got some boys, you know what I'm saying? If you could prevent that, keep them out, them people institution, you know what I mean? What I'm talking about, them departments of corrections, them federal institutions. If you could keep them out of there, you're damn near successful on being a parent. Because, see, you can't control them and you can't change them. And you can't make them do what you would want them to do at your age, because what it's saying is like, if I had it to do all over again, this is what I would do for myself. Well, you didn't even do that for yourself. And I'm living proof of that, Like I said, I'm 49, I've been on my job 4 years. Yeah, that's the longest job I've ever had in my life, you know what I mean? And in my 30s, I did a stretch, you know, in somebody's institution. And I had, basically from the time I'm telling you, I jumped off the porch at 12, 13 years old. You know, I had 18 years to get it together before I went wrong. I could have turned it around at any point, but I never did. I just kept pushing forward, going towards where it led me, you know. And I'm thankful. You know, I'm thankful that I'm here. I'm thankful for what I've been through. I'm thankful it didn't crush me. Some people get crushed, you know. Some people, they get a setback and they never come back, you know. They don't bounce back, you know. But you got to use this tool. You know what I mean? No matter what you're going through, you got to stay sharp. You got to keep your mind focused, keep pushing towards, you know, the goal. And the goal is survival. You know, I tell my kids, I just said my boys is 18, 20, 22. My girls, the oldest two, 27 and 31. The other one is 11. Yeah, I got a boy that's 11. We're going to get around into all of that because it's just all, to me, it makes me smile because I'm like, God, I got a sense of humor with everything he do. Then I got a girl that just turned 16. So anyway, and I tell my grown kids, which is five of them out the nest, 3 left in the chamber. And I tell them, I say, look, whether you go to school or not, school ain't for everybody. That's not important if it's not important to you. You know, it's an achievement. It's an accolade. It's what it is. It's a dedication of you. You know what I'm saying? Giving up, staying steady on the course for 4 years or 6 or 8. You know, but my oldest one, she went. You know, got her master's, whatever, blah blah blah. Married, got you know, live in the suburbs of Chicago. She's doing good. But I tell all of them, hey, it's all about survival at the end of the day. Because what you can't do is think I'm going to take care of you. No, that's not what I'm going to do. And somebody may watch this and say, oh, you wrong. You're going to be a parent for life. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to be a parent for life. You know what I mean? And you can call me. You can call me when it's smoking. Don't call me when it's a fire. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is like, you know, if it's January, right? If you ain't got rent for February, it's smoking. It's damn near a flame. You know what I mean? Because we're at the end of January. So I can help you now. I can talk to you and tell you you need to go get your second job and this and that and blah, 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 blah. But what I'm not going to do is pay your rent on come the first. You know, because you made a deal with them people over there. You ain't make one with me. I didn't co-sign for none of that. I'm not signing up for nothing like that. So what I mean by don't call me when it's a fire, don't call me when you're about to get evicted. That's a fire. You call a fireman for a fire. You know what I mean? You let it get that far, you might as well just find you a storage and figure out where you're going. But and if you come over here, it's gonna be like you renting. I'm just, you know, it's just what's real. And I'm the type of parent that, and this is what I tell. Me and my sister was just having this conversation. You're going to experience every emotion with me as a child dealing with me because that's my goal as a parent. You know, my goal as a parent is to make sure you're ready for the world. And what I mean by that, if you deal with every emotion at home, you know, if I tell you yes everywhere to everything, and then you get outside these doors and they tell you no, you're going to cry. So I'll make sure you cry at home. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of no vitamins. No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not giving that. I don't wear Jordans. You're not going to wear Jordans unless you go get a job and buy Jordans because that's not what I do. And you're not going to be doing better than me. And I'm the one with the money. No, that don't even make sense. Why would I dress you up and I'm over here looking like a bum? Nah, you're gonna dress equivalent to me, you know. You know, my 11-year-old daughter, she had on some Temu jewelry, and she like said something about she got on fake jewelry, and you know I got on something real. I said, well, that's how it works. You gonna keep getting some fake jewelry until you get you a job and buy you some real jewelry. I'll buy you a piece or two, monumental moments, but I ain't trying to drape you out. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. I even if I could do it, which I can, I'm not, because it's a false sense of security for you in the world when you go out, because You need to deal with all emotions, you know. As a child, I dealt with everything, you know. I cried and, you know what I mean, told no, we can't do this. Hey, I remember my mama told me, hey, we either finna lose the house or lose the car. Which one y'all want? We on the bus, but you know, she took a vote with us as kids, and it made us, you know, made us realize like, yeah, we popped, we barely making it. So you gotta keep it real with your kids. You know, you gotta, and that's what this story is about. Keeping it real with the kids, catching them at a young age, not spoiling them, rotting, not giving them a false sense of security. The boys, catch them before they hit the streets, because here's the thing, and I'm living proof. When you jump off that porch, ain't no coming back from off that porch. You can't go out there in the streets or get out there with them whales or get out there in the jungle with the gorillas and think you're finna run back home. No. Because they'll come up in your home too, looking for you. So, if you got a little boy, you know, I'm trying to say to you, for real, not just mine, yours, everybody, because when I'm outside, I don't like what I see, you know. I keep my doors locked too when I'm rolling, you know. So, yeah, catch them before they jump off the porch. When they leave your house, show them some love. Make sure you tell, if you love somebody, make sure you tell them you love them. Because tomorrow ain't promised. You know, it's not. Make sure you tell them you love them. Make sure they know that they loved. Make sure they know they can, this is where love lives, not out there. Because if you don't love them right here, somebody's going to give them a false sense of love. And then they're going to say something like this. Hey, man, I need you. And that's all it is. That's all it's going to take. Yeah. That's gang 101. Hey, fam, I need you. You know? Somebody say they need you. That's all you hear. Everybody want to be needed and wanted. So, love on who loving on you. And stay grounded with them kids. Keep them in reality. And raise them up. Catch them little boys early. Catch them early. Put them in some sports. Put them in some taekwondo. Catch them. Catch them. And with that, I'll holler at you next time.